Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel today. We're back with a Gran Turismo Sport Daily Race C track guide for the time trial and also a quick run through a lap with full fuel, and we're also going to go through all the tips for the race to get the most out of this race. I'm going to try and give you some tips if you're starting at the back, if you're starting at the front, what things to look out for, when to pit and stuff like that. We're going to go through that all in this video. So yeah, we're going to start off with obviously the track guide, running around Suzuka this time in the Group 2 cars. Now for this track guide we're using the Nissan GTR 2016 Super GT car, as you can see on screen at the moment. Other possibilities for the time trial are actually the NSX and the Lexus. I think both these cars are actually pretty solid, so what I advise you do is try and find the car that suits you the most. It's not always a case of driving what looks like the ultimate car on that time trial list. Remember, if you're right at the peak of like maximum speed, then yeah, you probably are going to go with the fastest car because you want to get the most out of it. But I do advise, if you're a little bit lower rated down on your drive rating or something like that, you want to find the car that suits you more and more comfortable with, because this can sometimes lead to a better lap. It's not always about the car that actually is the overall fastest, if you know what I mean. So yeah, there are other opportunities out there. I think that you can use the NSX, definitely. I think the NSX is actually pretty strong here, but it is a tricky car to drive. It's got a very strong front end. The rear will float out a little bit and slide out a bit, but if that is the kind of handling you like, you may prefer to use the NSX. The Lexus, on the other hand, is quite good on traction in certain areas. It's a pretty solid car at Suzuka. I did used to use it all the time, but I've actually grown more preferential to the GTR 16 now. I love the way it handles. So let's go through this track guide, starting the lap at Suzuka. This was a time trial lap that we did on Monday. I did it just before we went live. I didn't put too much time into it, so there is quite a lot of time to come off this, as you can see from our optimal at this point. But yeah, going into turn 1, you're going to be looking for the last board, the 50 board. Slowing it down here, you can see going into corner, we're just about lifting off the throttle at this point, way before the curb on the right hand side, but we're not on the brake yet. Then going on the brake very slowly and putting a lot of trail braking all the way through the corner, staying in third gear. See, I don't go down to second gear for my time trial and lap. I think it slows you down overall, and it's not really needed. Staying in third gear to keep the momentum out of that corner. Now attacking this corner in fourth gear, you can see again just a little lift off the throttle. Weight transfer is so important with this track, transferring the weight from each side. Again, you can see just a dab of trail braking going in here with again a lift off the throttle to rotate the car back into this corner. A little downshift to third gear also. We're going to get back on the power nice and early to get that rotation into the car, and early upshift to fourth gear, you'll see, with a little lift off the throttle again just as I upshift. That again is to help with the rotation of the car as we put the power back on to keep the speed going through the corner. Now again, we're going to go down to third gear and a little lift off the throttle with just a tiny bit of braking input going in. Again, you can see on the braking input there, this is to keep the car as close to this curb on the right hand side as possible. It's very important to do that. Getting on the power as early as we can. We're going to really swing it through this left hand corner here. This is a corner where you can gain a lot of time. On my lap, I didn't quite nail it. You're going to see I keep having to lift off the throttle because I'm not confident of putting the power down. What you'll see is when we actually show you the lap with full race fuel, I do that corner a lot better and actually probably carry more speed through there. So yeah, a lot of time to gain on that corner. Next corner, we're going to brake just on that 50 board. You see that 50 board on the left hand side, a little bit of braking input going in there, and you can aim in to take quite a bit off this corner. You can really attack this corner, but just be careful not to take too much and get a penalty. As long as your left hand tyre stays pretty much within the white line, you should be okay. And again, as soon as you've straightened the car up here, back on the brakes. You really need to get that braking in done nice and early. Try and keep it stable. Third gear through here. Again, use the right hand. That little bit of green Astro on the right hand side to help rotate the car, and on the power as early as you can. Very important. The earlier you're on the power, the better speed you'll carry into this next braking zone. So yeah, now into this heavy braking zone. A tricky corner this. As soon as the car straightens up, I brake almost instantly. As soon as that corner's over, you straighten the car up onto the brakes, braking in a straight line down into first gear, then rotating the car through with a bit of trail braking into the apex of the corner. And again, rotated that in really nicely, clipping the apex with the curb there on the left hand tyre, and that is almost ideal. Slowly putting that throttle back in. You see, not instant maximum throttle, just slowly feeding it through. Early upshift to second gear, accelerating out the corner, and now we're heading into the spoon corner, where again, this is a very important corner for the back straight. You're going to see now going into this corner, you're going to look for the little bit of grey tarmac there. I use that as a bit of braking reference all the time. and we're actually going to stay in 4th gear for this corner. You're going to see keeping it in 4th gear, trying to get the left hand tyre as close to that curb as possible, skimming the curb with your left hand tyre, and then we're going to slowly feed that throttle back in. You see there, slowly feeding it in, using the curb on the outside. This is really important to get your right hand tyre to almost go onto that green bit of Astro, but just not close on, like not onto it, because you will lose the rear if you do it. You see, that will really enable you to slingshot through this corner and accelerate out and gain a lot of momentum down the straight, as we now see. You can see the difference between the Ghost. My Ghost is falling back in the mirror there. That's because if you get that corner right, you can gain a lot of speed down this straight. Now, flat out 100% all the way down here, no need to lift through this corner, it's completely flat. Just try and skim the apex, a line of least resistance if possible, and then braking quite early. You actually see we're braking way before the 100 board on the left hand side, and that is quite important. A lot of people think you're braking on the 100, but you don't. You actually brake quite a bit before, using as much of the track as possible through the final chicane. This is very important as well. You can really take a little bit, you can take a bit off that one, but this is a corner where you can take a lot using your right hand tyre. Just as long as you keep your right hand tyre pretty much on the green Astro, you should be okay. A little bit too much and you will get a penalty, but as long as you keep your right tyre on that green bit of Astro, you should be okay. Accelerating out of the corner, little short shift there, and flat out over the line for a 1 minute 45.5. Like I say, there's a lot of time to gain in that. I think our optimal when we finished it after Monday was down to a 45.2, but I'm not really worried about pushing the time trial too much. I just wanted to get a solid lap in to start me quite high up, and also decided to do this track guide because I don't think we've ever done one with the soft tyre with the Super GTs. So going into turn 1, you can see again, we're braking nice and early, trying to be smooth, not downshifting to second still, even with the full fuel, keeping it in 3rd gear through there, and again through here, you're going to see hogging the left hand side, using that 4th gear to 3rd gear, and then still early upshift to 4th gear here, and still taking that corner 4th gear even with the full fuel on. I do advise doing it like this. I don't think you need to go down to 2nd gear, if I'm honest. It's just going to give you more tyre wear. I think staying in that 3rd gear is a smoother experience. It's going to keep the car nice and smooth over the lap, also going to help that tyre wear. Now into this right hand corner, you can see attacking it, but being careful not to attack that too much, because it obviously with the extra weight it does tend to swing a little bit further wide, closer to the gravel, and you don't want to be obviously losing control of the car there. You will see a lot of people lose control on that section because of the extra weight of the car. Again, being smooth through here, the traction's really good with the full fuel. You can find you can be quite aggressive on the accelerator coming out of that corner, as long as you square the car up first. Make sure you're squaring up nice and early, and you can actually get on that throttle very early. Into the next braking zone, again using that bit of grey tarmac on the right hand side with the full fuel. A difference here, you'll see maybe taking a little bit less speed into the apex. That is one thing. Obviously you've not got the lighter cars, so you have to be a bit more cautious with how much speed you're taking through some of these corners. And again, this corner still completely flat. One thing I would say for the race conditions is the final chicane, you're probably not going to be as aggressive with the track limits as you would be in time trial, because you don't want to pick up a penalty. So again, you see braking nice and early in between the 150 and the 100 board, hitting the curve nicely there. We actually took quite a bit off there, we risked it, but I've got used to doing that. I feel pretty confident at doing that line through in race conditions and over the line for a 47.7, so a solid lap in race conditions. So that is how I advise you do in the race conditions compared to the time trials. There's just a little bit of difference, mainly with apex speeds that you're carrying through the corners, etc. So next up, we're going to talk a little bit about the strategy options available in this race. We're going to leave the replay going on in the background from a race. Now, there is variations for this combination. We are running tyre wear on ×6. Fuel is no issue for yourself during this race with just the ×2 fuel, so you do not need to worry anything about fuel. It is 100% maximum attack, but tyre wear is quite important because it's ×6. You are racing the racing soft tyre with the racing medium. Now you do need to use both them, you only have to actually use the medium tyre in this race, but that means that you're going to want to use the soft as well, because the soft tyre is way faster than the medium, because obviously it is a very twisty track, a lot of corners. The Super GT cars are over a second quicker really with the softer compound tyre. Now with this ×6 on the tyre wear, and this track has actually got a very short pit lane loss. It's around 4 to 4.5 seconds, something like that, for total pit lane loss. It's not the time you're in the pits, it's the total pit lane loss that you need to work out, and it's very, very small at this track. Hence why on Monday I was doing the 2-stop strategy, because for me, I'm a little bit stronger on the softer compound tyres. So with starting at the front of the grid, what I was doing was pushing like crazy and going for a 2-stop strategy. Now there are variations in this 2-stop strategy, and you need to pay attention to the map while doing this, because You need to look in the top right hand corner when you're racing at the map, at where the traffic is, to determine when you think it's a good idea to pit. Always look where P2 is, the gap to P2 if it's say 2.5 seconds, and then see if there's a pretty equal gap to that to P3 as well, and you might be able to find a slot to get yourself into after you've pitted. So yeah, with the gap being around 4.5 seconds, the issue with this is if you pit lap 4 and you know you're going to come out a second behind P2 or something like that, then you know that you're going to catch them up on your outlap, because the soft tyres are going to be so much faster. So you need to bear this in mind, and this is why I was a lot of the time staying out till lap 5, then pitting, doing 4 laps on the soft tyre again, and then 1 lap on the medium, because the softs are just so much faster than the medium anyway. So if you're already ahead, you might as well just secure that with a more grippy tyre that's easier to drive for myself, and build that lead up. You only need to get to about 5-second lead and you'll easily come out in front of the medium tyre. And with the softer tyre being at least a second quicker than the medium anyway, I really advise you give this strategy a go if you're starting at the front of the grid. However, if you're starting midway through the grid, there are options available. You might want to start on the soft tyre. However, this again could be a problem if you are starting behind someone who is a medium tyre runner, because this track is notorious for the dirty air that we talk about and following another car, and especially in Group 2. Group 2 is quite a car that is affected by the turbulent air coming off another car. However, it's not as bad as Group 1, for example. So if you are on the soft tyre and there's a medium tyre runner in front of you and you have got a bit more pace, you probably will be able to find a way through, but you might get held up for half a lap, a lap. Even a lap of getting held up could really affect your strategy. So starting midfield, sometimes it is a good idea to start on the medium tyre. And one thing I would be cautious of is running the 2-stop strategy from this position, because if you're going to pit lap 1, when you've put say you start the race with medium tyres and you pit at the end of lap 1, even though the pit lane loss is only about 4.5 seconds, the problem here is the field distribution. There is going to be quite short gaps between each car. So you might be in P10, you pit for the medium, you pit after lap 1, you put a set of soft tyres on, and you're then going to come out in say P15, 16, because there's probably going to be 5 or 6 cars that are going to go past you because there is no gaps developed yet. And this is a big problem, because then you're going back out on soft tyres. You might not need then to run the medium tyre, but you've got a lot of traffic that could be on mediums, worn softs, and you're not going to gain that much time. So my personal preference that I would probably do if I was running in the midfield around P10 at the start of the race, from P6 to P10, P12, something like that, is probably put the medium tyre on. I would be tempted to go either to lap 4, look for a gap. If there's a gap that you think you can jump into and then take advantage of an undercut on the softs, because that will be a huge advantage, then I would do that. If not, I would possibly extend and then give yourself fresh softs to the end. This is what I would do. I would probably go with the 1-stop strategy. If you're starting in last place, then again, you might actually, if you think you've got a lot more pace than what's in front of you from last, I would possibly be tempted to just start on the medium and then put the softs on, because you're probably going to catch up to the car in front after a lap or so anyway if they're on medium. So you're going to give yourself a bit more ability to overtake with them soft tyres, because it won't take you long to catch up medium runners. And with the pit lane loss being 4 seconds, you're not really going to be that far behind. If you're in P20 when you pit, you're probably going to be 4 seconds behind coming out on the soft tyre, which you'll gain in a few laps, and then you've got better, faster tyres to actually overtake you. Then you will not need to use the mediums at the end. So bear that in mind. There is alternative strategies for this. There's so many different ways of doing it, whether you pit lap 4 for soft tyres, lap 5, but one thing you need to pay attention to is the gaps on the track map. Now, you need 5 seconds really to be 100% safe, but 4.5 is just about enough normally, but I would try and make sure it's a 5-second gap. And like I say, you can use the deltas to the car behind you and look at the gap on the map to try and work out what kind of gap there is on the track. You can always look for gaps as well by using that delta and also the track map in the top right hand corner. I hope this has been some kind of help. My personal preference at starting at the front is starting on them soft tyres, pitting either lap 4 or 5. Now the fastest way to do it, if you've got the gap behind you, is to pit on lap 4, then with the lighter fuel do the 5 stint on the soft tyres, and then pit for that 1 lap on the medium tyres. That has actually, I think that way has given me my fastest finishing time of 18 minutes 11 flat. Other than that, when we've gone to lap 5, I think it's been around 18 minutes 12.5. It's not a massive difference, but if you're looking to get that ultimate time from the front of the grid and to give yourself the best possible chance, these are the little fine details that might matter to you. So hopefully this will help you out. Remember, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'm very grateful to everyone that hits that subscription button and hits the notification button so you don't miss any future videos or live streams. Thanks again for watching this video. Hit that like button, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks again, everyone.